And away we go. And welcome in, fine citizens. Away we go. So much to get to, and so much that we saw over the weekend. So much coming up later tonight. Just to let everyone know, we are actually taping this show, unlike the live version we always do, a little earlier in the afternoon on Monday because the Squatch, world famous Squatch, as my dad says in my own mind, I will be covering Lions, Bucks, Monday Night Football at Ford Field, as I always cover the Lions, part of one of the many things that I do in the incredible realm of sports media and broadcasting. And they decided to have the second doubleheader in a week. I remember there was like one a year. It was 7, 8, 9 years ago. It was like, whoa, we're going to have a doubleheader for Monday Night Football. And you like freaked out and you're all excited. Now there's like 15 of them. Now, like every other week, it seems like there's a doubleheader because there was one last week and it was a staggered one, 7 o'clock, 8:15. Tonight, it's Lions, Bucks at 7. I was going to say Mariners. We'll get to the Mariners in a minute. Seahawks, Texans at 10. So it's a true doubleheader. And that's the way that they used to do it, if you remember, on opening weekend, the first Monday Night Football game for years. They would do the doubleheader. They'd have like, I remember Brett Musburger called the late game, like the Raiders were on it once, or there was West Coast teams. But now it's like they've decided, because they know the ratings will be so good, that they do several weeks a year of 2 Monday Night Football games. I love it. I know that many of you do not. I've talked about this on various shows that I've done in the past. I've talked about this on social media. I know that many of you out there think it's stupid to have, you got to switch the channels. You want to have one game. Back when I was a kid, Monday Night Football was everything when I was on ABC. And it was such a big deal if your team made it. I remember as a 13-year-old in 1990, the Barry Sanders-led Detroit Lions played the Bo Jackson-led Los Angeles Raiders at that time. And I think it was Art Shell was the coach, yeah. And they played, the Lions hadn't been on Monday Night Football since 1986 when I was 9, and my dad would not let me go because it was a school night, obviously. All Monday Night Football games are on school night, basically, unless it's on a holiday week. And he would let me go as a 9-year-old, and I could have seen William the Refrigerator Perry score a touchdown. Lions didn't lose. The Bears were off the Super Bowl. Or, I'm sorry, it was 87, but it was after they won it was 86. And they just won the Super Bowl the year before, and he wouldn't let me go, so I was bummed about that. But I was able to go. My dad didn't want to go, even though we had season tickets. So I went with a good friend of mine, my great friend Joey Berger, the Berger family. We sat 50-yard line, upper deck, row like 1, and it was this incredible, I'm sure some remember it, incredible game pitting the 2 best running backs maybe ever against each other. Lions ended up finding a way to lose that game in the end. But the atmosphere, Barry Sanders run, I think he had over 100-something yards and at least 1 touchdown. It was unfreaking believable. Back then, it meant so much. Not that it doesn't anymore. Of course it still does. But like there wasn't Amazon Prime. There wasn't NFL Network. There wasn't like 18 million streaming things. There wasn't NFL Red Zone. So you were on ABC. They did Al Michaels and Frank Gifford and Dan Deerdorf. It was just legendary before I was alive, or actually when I was very young, but I don't remember it. And then before I was alive, Howard Cosell was hosting Monday Night Football, Dapper Don Meredith. And it was just a traveling road show that was the highest rated TV show of the week on any network. Now you got multiple Monday night games, doubleheaders every other week. It's crazy. But that's where I will be later. We're going to talk about the Lions and Bucks game. There's been some movement on Lions Bucks that will still be relevant when this show airs at 6 p.m. Eastern. I think some of it's on the Ibuka news, as he's a game time decision. Maybe he's not going to play. We'll see, because that line has been creeping up. It opened at 5.5. You saw it go down to 4.5, back to 5.5, up to 6. Now you're seeing Lions minus 6.5 in some places. So a lot of movement going on with that. And we're going to get to we'll pick the Hawks Texans game as well with my same game, my squad same game Monday Night Football parlays, as I always do. I got some look ahead lines. We're going to pick Thursday Night Football and obviously take a look back at what happened over an incredible and crazy, one of the craziest games you will ever see. We'll get into that in just a bit, but a couple things I want to do on the jump here. Oh, and we're also going to check in on my great producer, Davonshire's week off from the Ravens and where the panic meter sits. We'll do that a little later in the show. But so I want to start with this before we get into anything else. We are getting into week 7. We're about to get to week 8. That means in 3 weeks, if you're in the Bull Rush Survivor Contest, you start getting cash prizes for first, second, and third. And anyone that wins a week automatically gets into week 20, where first place is $50,000. So you can still get in. Obviously, if you did get in before the season started, like me and all the smart people. Now, I'm not saying you're not smart if you didn't get in. Maybe you didn't know about it. Maybe you're just learning about the Monday Night Edge, which, by the way, sizzled my play of the week last week. That Davonshire did a great job of posting all around the interwebs, which, by the way, have been having lots of problems today. I'm sure a lot of you know, based on what you do for a living or where you live or where you work, that there's a huge AWS outage around the world. Half the internet was the title of one of the headlines on a very popular news aggregation site. Half the internet down. So I hope everyone's watching this show. But the pick of the week last week was the Eagles. Eagles minus 2.5. It looked dicey for a minute, but you got to trust the Squatch. And I'll show you some other big wins over the weekend in a minute. But all you got to do is go to bullrush.com, put the promo code EDGE in to get into a satellite. And if you're a poker player, you know what satellites are. If you're not, I'll explain. Bull Rush's incredible Survivor Contest, one of the main reasons I partner with them, is not like a regular Survivor Contest. It's not where you pick one team and they have to win outright and you can't use them again. With Bull Rush, you get $100,000 in virtual money every week and it resets every week. You can make as little as 2 wagering slips, as many as, 50,000. Whatever you want to do. You can make any amount of wagers you want as long as you make at least 2 on player props, 15-leg point spread parlays, 15-leg money line parlays, point spreads, player props, totals, whatever you want. You can make one $99,000 bet, one $1 bet. You can make, like I said, $5,000 bets. Whatever you want to do, you can do it. And if you finish in the top 80%, you advance, and then you keep moving on. And like I said, $100,000 prize pool, and you get $50K for first when you get to week 20 for one of the winners, or if you advance all the way to week 20. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see how this continues to go. And it only costs $20 to get into this satellite, and you got to finish the top 10 people. You can definitely get it done. Use the code EDGE at bullrush.com. It only will cost you $15. So it's $5 off, and you get into that satellite to get into the main draw. If you finish in the top 10 places, you get put into the main Bull Rush Survivor draw, where there's thousands of people fighting right now for that chance to get the $50,000 first prize. So please check that out. Use the promo code EDGE at bullrush.com and get involved in the coolest Survivor contest I've ever seen. So let's throw this on screen, because we're going to start with baseball. And I gave this play out on this show before the playoffs started. The Blue Jays. How do you not love the Blue Jays after the big 6-2 win to stave off elimination? The Blue Jays have such a great record at home in playoff games historically, whether it's been the Sky Dome or going back to Exhibition Stadium. They also, teams that are home in the ALCS have a great record in elimination games. So I still love this bet. If they win tonight, which I think they will, they're going to go to the World Series, and I will hedge because the Dodgers will be probably a small favorite. But they may be a lot more nervous than I wanted to be, but I feel pretty darn good about the Jays coming through tonight, and we'll cash this. I gave it out, obviously, at 6.5 to 7 to 1, and I boosted it myself. But 7 to 1 or 6.5 to 1 was great for the playoffs started with a team as good as the Blue Jays. So we'll see what happens tonight. I think the Blue Jays are going to get off to another big start like they did in game number 5. And I do feel pretty good with having Shane Bieber, who's pitched in big games on the mound. Obviously, George Kirby's pretty solid, but not been great in this series. And I feel really confident that Vlad Guerrero, who's been unstoppable will get the job done again. You didn't have any really action from Springer last night. He's due to get something going. Obviously, Ernie Clement with a triple. He's been incredible. Kirk's been great. Barger, that Blue Jays team, really, really good. The offense, scary. And by the way, one more thing on baseball. I know this is mainly a football show, but we were going to talk all sports here as we always do. I think that you can simply say this now. And I know that I got no fight. I don't even fight about sports stuff. But a good friend of mine, he's a longtime baseball guy, much older than me, Doc Marv Sonny, big anti-dead-type guy. We got a little bit of an argument about this because the Michigan, by the way, go Wolverines. We had a great tailgate with my dad and brother-in-law and my nephew, the O-Wiz. Saturday, nice win over Washington. Bryce Underwood looks a lot better. The Wolverines are getting their stuff in order. But I was talking to Marv about the greatest baseball player of all time. And I said, it's over. I mean, obviously you can never say it's over, but in my opinion, it's easily Shohei Ohtani. I mean, he's like Babe Ruth. Like, listen, first off, it just shows how old you are. Secondly, how can you compare the dead ball era where they were throwing 60-mile-an-hour meatballs to guys that are throwing 105 and 101, not just 2 or 3 times a game, like 15 pitches in a row. Remember when Chapman was reaching over 110, whatever, plus years ago, and there have been very few that had ever pitched over 100. I was like, oh my God, he reached 101 like 2 times in a game. Now some of these guys are throwing 100+ mile an hour pitches 15 times in a game. It's a completely different game. And not only did Ohtani have one of the greatest postseason games of all time, he is doing things that no one else has ever done. He had 3 home runs, 10 strikeouts, allowed 2 hits in an elimination game to get to the World Series. I mean, it's just, he's the best player ever. And I understand the Babe Ruths and the Ty Cobbs and, the Grover Clevelands. That was such a different era. Baseball's been around so long. Even comparing early football eras, which has not been around as long as baseball, I think it's crazy. You can't compare Babe Ruth with Barry Bonds, or even a player like Mickey Mantle with Shohei Ohtani. Or I'm not trying to compare those two together, but the kind of skill set that Ohtani has. But it's just a different time. It would be like trying to compare the football era where there were leather helmets to what they're doing now. When back then, teams literally, it was like Bo Schembechler's Michigan football, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. No one was passing the ball. There weren't flea flickers. The quarterbacks weren't being protected the way they are. It's completely different. Ohtani is the greatest player ever. He's only going to keep adding to that. He's a unicorn. He can pitch it at an all-star level. He can bat at an all-star level. He can field at an all-star level. He is unfreaking ridiculous. Just out of control. So throw that out there. But let's get into, before we get into some of the games that I want to look back at yesterday, what the Squatch did over the weekend. And another great weekend for the Squatch. And as I always say, you can always check out DTMSquatchmix.club as well. A lot of winners there as well as on this show. My big play was the Eagles -2.5. So obviously we sizzled that. I did give out the Panthers too, that one. But David, I think I gave out one game that lost. Oh yeah. I said I didn't love it. No, we'll get to that in 1 second, David. I said I didn't love it, but I gave out the Jags for the London game +3.5. So, I mean, full transparency, I don't win everything, but the 2 big plays were the Panthers and the Eagles, and we sizzled it on this show last week. I got to look at lines for you. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'll be here all week. All right, but David, let's show them some of the other Squatch winners. This is one of my favorite plays of the weekend. Browns money line. I moved the under up to 40.5. I make these plays on bullrush.com on the Survivor contest too sometimes. There's the Eagles and the Panthers as I gave them out. That Browns game got hairy because all Tua Tagovailoa likes to do is throw interceptions, and the weather was supposed to be a lot worse than it was. But it almost hit the regular total. The regular total was 36, but I knew because it opened at 40.5. And if you don't, and I'll say, we talk about this on the show a lot. I'm always going to teach you guys things that I've learned. What is that line in Rounders? I gave you all the tips off my own bad beats. Kanish when he's talking to Mike. So Mikey D, I'm going to always help everyone. And I don't know everything, but I've learned a lot in my years of hosting shows and wagering and living in Costa Rica and being involved with, different handicappers and Vegas stuff. So I know the business. And I know I've been very successful. That's why I'm on a website. That's why I host the show. And I always want to help people. Something that I think is very important for people to understand that wager on the NFL, more so the NFL than college. But in general, this is something that's very true, especially these days with the advent of algorithms and computer systems and how the odds makers make lines when it comes to different point spreads and totals. Totals to me are not worth betting on often. Now, there are times where I will do it. There's times where, especially in college, where I'll take a team total over. I don't like taking unders really, but I took an under in this game, and I'll explain why in a minute. But I always look to find games that I like to go over. I want to share against points. But you got to understand, these days, Vegas, the odds makers, no matter what the sports book is or where you're betting, they have these numbers down to a T. Think about how many games, and a lot of this in football is because of the key numbers I've told you about, 3 points, 7 points, 10, 13, 14, when it comes to how scoring works. But think about how many games, like this Browns Dolphins game, that was 40 before when the line came out. There was supposed to be really bad weather. There was very windy, but it wasn't as rainy as they thought it was going to be. It closed at 36.5 in most places. 37 was the total. And that's because the only reason is because Tua kept throwing picks. It would have been way under. But my point is that it opened at 40, heavy plays on the under, closes at 36.5, and goes over. They know what they're doing. They know, obviously, a lot of times sports books will, they want to have the two-way action so they can win on the juice. That's how they make their money. Obviously, there's sometimes where there's bigger liabilities. One team is bet 80% by the public or 80% of the handle, if you will, and the other team's 20%. So they obviously don't want to lose that side, but they don't care because it's all about them making money on the other losers that maybe where the public was big on and they lose because the public, unfortunately, most times is wrong. But they want to try to get those lines bet on both sides so they can make as much of that minus 110, minus 115 juice. That's how they make their millions of dollars. But I just want to be very alert with this. I'm very outward about how I don't think betting totals is very smart unless you're buying numbers up or down. Because if let's say a total, and there's not a weather factor, opens 44.5 in like a Saints-Bears game, for example, and goes up to 48 or goes down to 43, there's obviously a reason, and those numbers come into fruition so often. It's just unbelievable. So in my opinion, the only reason I did this is because I bought it up to 40.5, where the original line was, which I liked in the first place. And though if the weather was as bad as it was supposed to be, it probably would have gone under 36.5. But other than the wind, it wasn't nearly as bad. And as I mentioned, Tua kept throwing interceptions, including a pick six. So this game probably should have finished in the low 30s, if not the high 20s. But that's just another feather you could put in your cap, another bullet for bullet for the ammo you want to have to try to take down the sports books or your friend, Fred Chesko, your college roommate, Eric. I don't know where these names are coming from, but it's important to know they have these games lined so right. Another thing that's really tough these days is NBA playoff betting. They've got those point spreads so down, especially totals when it comes to like the NBA finals and the conference finals. So, you just got to be careful with that kind of stuff. But I will give out totals occasionally on this show, not that often. But that was one that I liked. And obviously it went down to 36.5 or so. And that's why I bought it up. But love that cash for, it was a 6.5 to 1 that I boosted there. Let's throw another brilliant play by the Squatch. And I want to make sure people understand, I'm not just trying to throw these out there to brag. I don't win every play, but I give out these things out to my clients at DTMSquatchmix.club. And I give out a lot of these plays on this show. So it's about showing you that, I'm kind of zoned in and locked in on this stuff. I want to help people win. And, I show you, I always will show you some of my near misses as well, the heartbreaks. But this was a fun one. So Warren he might win Rookie of the Year. He's been incredible. He's so good. His number was, I think, close to 49, but I just wanted to make it, safer. As I said, I'll buy these up or down sometimes. Pittman Jr. has been great. He went away over his number. Golden barely over the number, but he's been phenomenal as well. And then the Denver Giants game, which we're going to get to in a second here, one of the craziest games you'll ever see. So Sutton had 5 receptions. He had them all in the first half. So luckily that all the stuff was basically done by halftime. if you watch the Denver game, which we're going to kind of recap here in a second, you understand that Denver could do nothing for 3 quarters. Bo Nix had 3 rushing yards. The Giants play zone defense. And if you play zone defense, you should be running your quarterback all the freaking time. He had 3 yards into the early stages of the fourth quarter with about 11 minutes left, maybe under 11 minutes left. The Broncos got the ball. They were down 26-9. 26-3. Maybe it was 26-9. But the game was over. The Broncos got the ball back. Nix had like a short run, and then he had like a 30-yard run. And I wasn't even paying attention. I was just making fun of my friend that was a Broncos fan for a while, which I ended up having to eat crow for. But he had like a 25-yard run to clinch this for me. I loved it. It was about 7 or so to 1. So we sliced that. And then also, speaking of that Jags game, I did give this out as well. I gave the Jags out, but I also did give out a Travis Hunter touchdown. I can throw that up, Tom. And so I love that. The little anytime first touchdown for Hunter. How about the value of plus 340? And then I got to boost it up to 445. 56 to win you 305 is never a bad day. So that was some of the fun over the weekend. But I want to get right into this because there are so many games I want to talk to you about. The most important one, though, is one of the craziest games I have ever seen. I am almost 50 years old. I don't look it. I act like I'm 18. But I will tell you this. Very few times in my football life have I seen a game that made less sense at times and no sense at times than that Broncos-Giants game. And just to give you a little background. So I'm a big Lions fan, always have been. And I have a really good friend who I make fun of a lot, but he makes fun of me too. His name is Dave. I call him Baby Dave. Maybe that was his old radio name years ago. And his brother actually was a former colleague of mine at one of the sports stations here in Detroit. I have lived all over the world throughout my life. Costa Rica, Atlanta, New Hampshire, California, Florida. I've lived everywhere. I've always been a Detroit fan. I'm not trying to judge anybody out there if you're not a fan of the show. And by the way, I apologize. I know we're recording today, so we can't be as interactive as we like to be. If you're sending comments, and still send them in, I'll still respond to them because I'm sure people have stories like this. So I've never wavered on my fandom. And I'm not saying that if you do, you're a bad person, but I've lived in a lot of places and still always was a Lions fan no matter what. Always was a Tigers fan no matter what. This guy, Baby Dave, has never lived anywhere outside of Metro Detroit, Michigan, his entire life. And when he was a young kid, his great father, which unfortunately now has since passed on, took him and his brother to Lions games every now and then. And they took him in, I want to say it was 1982, 83, whatever, 83-ish, to a Gary Danielson Lions. He was a Lions quarterback. If you're a football fan, you probably know that. Back in the 80s, a preseason game. And the Lions were losing late, and they were driving to win. Remember, preseason game. Trying to win the game. Game doesn't matter. Back then, they used to play the starters late in the games anyway, so it was weird that he was even playing. But the Lions started quarterback Gary Danielson threw a pass to this receiver. His name was Jeff Chadwick. And he dropped it, and the Lions lost. And that was the day at 10 years old that Dave said, I'm no longer a Lions fan. And listen, I used to like watching the Broncos and some of the like the Raiders or wherever they were. I remember back in the day, if you're around my age, NBC and the AFC, and they would have those afternoon games out in Denver, out in Los Angeles, out in Seattle, whatever. They would have the AFC teams that would play the late games because back then there was only a few networks that you could watch. There wasn't all these different streaming sites and ESPN and all the other stuff. So he became a Broncos fan. And listen, I can't hate on him because they did win multiple Super Bowls. They did have John Elway, who I loved. They were kind of my favorite team along with the Dolphins in the AFC. But I never became a Broncos fan or a Dolphins fan. So Dave and I go back and forth with each other all the time. He usually would have been with me yesterday because I have access, not to brag, but I have access to this VIP room at a local sports book here. And it's really nice. They got tons of TVs. It's private. They got couches, food and really cool stuff. And I normally take him there for the Broncos games because the Broncos do play a lot more at 4 o'clock than the Lions do. And he would have been with me yesterday, but we have another friend, our good friend Stetzela, who is a big Giants fan. So Stetz and him watch the Giants-Broncos games whenever they play every few years at Stetz's house. Not only did my friend Stetz cook for Dave, but then he proceeded to lose a game that if you tried to lose 5 different times, you probably would have. the fact that you have a Broncos team that scored 0 points in the first 3 quarters, a Giants team at one point up 26-9, and the Broncos find a way to come all the way back, and then the Giants find a way with very little time left to take the lead again under, 30 or so seconds, and miss the extra point with the red-headed stepchild kicker, McLaughlin, whatever his freaking name is, McNulty from The Wire. And then the Broncos in, 28, 35 seconds, get all the way down, aided by a penalty, and kick the Lutz game-winning field goal. That game was drunk. I still can't believe it happened. It was one of the craziest things. I was watching it in the VIP room. Everyone was going crazy. We said that if anyone, because I'm in there with a bunch of big degenerates, guys that are betting 10 grand on halftime 2-leg over-under parlays for, to win $28,000. If anyone took the Giants or the Broncos live, when they were down 26-9, like late in the game, it was probably 10 or 15 to 1. I think I looked up for a second to the odds board. I think it was like 10 or 15 to 1. They're just sick. Don't try to come to work today or at me on Twitter and say, I had it all along. I knew they were going to come back. Anyone that did that's insane. The Broncos had no business winning that game. They totally got lucky to move to 5-2, but you got to give them credit because the Broncos are the best fourth quarter team in the NFL by points this year. So you knew that was a factor. The Giants totally gaffed it away. Giants have done so many good things the last few weeks, including that huge win over the Eagles. And they completely blow it, at least a chance to get to overtime by that extra point being missed by the kicker. But they had given up 0 points to Denver, whose offense sucks, by the way. I don't care they scored 33 in the fourth quarter. Their offense sucks. And Bo Nix, I don't believe, is going to be this great quarterback that some people think he is. That being said, 0 points through 3 quarters, 33 points in the fourth quarter. Just absolute gobble monster. So that was a game I will never forget. How about the Los Angeles Rams, going back to the early game out in England, in London? I was wrong about this game. I thought the Jags would be in it. I thought the Rams could win, but I like the Jags plus the 3.5. Trevor Lawrence, not a bad game, but a lot of drop passes. And I think the Jaguars blew a lot of opportunities to get in the game. The Rams just continue to soldier on and look really, really, really good. And this Rams team, I talked about before the season, they are, I think, possibly Super Bowl worthy. They could get there. I gave out Matt Stafford on this show 40-1 to win the MVP. I mean, is he going to win it? I don't think he's got a great chance right now, but what if they keep winning and get to like 13, 14, 15 wins? I mean, they're 5-2. They could be a 13, 14 win team. And Stafford's been amazing. 35-7 over the Jags. That was a romp. And I hope you took my advice. We gave it on the show. It took the Stafford MVP odds at 40-1. They're already offering me a cash. I'm not going to take it till later on in the year when maybe he gets down to being the second, third, or fourth favorite where the odds are really down. But to me, I think the Rams, and Sean McVay has done this before. They've won a Super Bowl with Matt Stafford. There's comfortability there. It's a really good Rams team. And Kyron Williams, that guy's always a threat to score. I did like seeing as I gave out that play too, and we cashed it. Travis Hunter scoring his first touchdown. He's going to be incredible. So the Rams impressed me a lot yesterday too. How about the Chicago Bears? I did a hit on one of my favorite networks, VSiN, last night, and we, to preview the Monday Night Football game with the Lions and Bucks. I was asked, what do you think, Squatch, about the NFC North? Packers, obviously, we'll get to the Packers in a minute, but Packers had the lead early when they beat the Lions. Lions had won 4 in a row, retook the lead, lost to the Chiefs, fell out of the lead. Now you look at the Chicago Bears. This is why the Lions-Bucks game tonight is such an important one. This Bears team has won 4 games in a row. And not all of them pretty. The Saints aren't a very good team, but they get by the Saints. Caleb Williams didn't have a great day, but I think that he's getting better. And you look at this NFC North right now. To me, maybe you talk about, well, you can't really do because there's only 2 teams. Maybe down the road, the NFC East with the Eagles, Cowboys, and Commanders, and even the Giants will be looked at as a better division. Maybe the NFC West, because you got San Fran and LA at 5-2 and Seattle at 4-2. The Cardinals suck. But I think when all is said and done, The Packers, Lions, and Bears, and the Vikings, if J.J. McCarthy can get healthy, and you feel bad for that former Michigan Wolverine quarterback. Can't say how I think he's missed, 19 to 21 games his career or whatever, a little more than that. That might be the best division in football. Coming into the season, it was going to be one of the best. Right now, you've got combined 15 and 8 in the division. You got 2, 3, 4-win teams and a 3-win team with the Vikings. And obviously the Packers have a tie. So I think this is going to be a very interesting division. And the Bears, while I'm not buying into them right now, be a big threat this year. They're getting better. You look at their schedule; they got some winnable games, including at Donovan Shire's Ravens off the bye, at the Bengals. No Joe Burrow. Home against the Giants. We'll see if the Giants are still playing the way they are now. That game, that loss to Denver might really hurt that team. It might get Brian Dable fired in the end. At the Vikings, home Steelers. I mean, they got some winnable games. So that's why a team like the Lions, and I said this last night during that live hit, got to win games like Monday Night Football. You got to move to 5-2. You can't drop to 4-3 because this is going to be a very tough division, the NFC North, and it might end up being, as I said, the best division. So impressed with the Bears, even though I can't stand them. I did win a pizza bet with an old producer friend of mine. We always make a Bears-Lions bet, and if I win, he has to pay for a Chicago deep dish pizza. And if he wins, if the Lions lose, which they haven't yet, he gets, I don't know what pizza he's going to choose. It's probably something lame, but I always make sure it's a sweet Chicago deep dish. Also, speaking of the Miami Dolphins, how much longer is Mike McDaniel, who, no offense to homeless people, looked like a homeless person on the sideline if you watched the game yesterday? He had the hood over himself, looked like he was on. I mean, I really should say this, but he just didn't look good. And I think he knows the fate is sealed. That team is awful. I don't think Tua, I don't want people to hate on Tua. I think Tua has been concussed so many times that he'll never be the same. I think Tua was a great quarterback, had the capabilities of being a great quarterback, showed it at Alabama, showed it at times with the Dolphins. Obviously, he has not been great in big games in the playoffs for Miami. I like Tua. I think he's never going to be the same, and you feel for him. It's just one of the ugly sides of football. That team is 1-6. McDaniel he came out after the game yesterday, said he's not worried about his job. He's worried about coaching his team. I appreciate him saying that, but it's over. Tua has had 6 picks in 2 games, and you wonder if they're going to bench him at some point. I mean, if you're a fan of the Dolphins, I guess you don't really care. Because I have some friends who are Dolphins fans are like, whatever, this team sucks. They're going to have to rebuild the whole thing. But if you're a fan of a team the Dolphins are going to play, you don't want them to bench Tua. I mean, I guess maybe you can having Tua there is a worse scenario when it comes to competitive advantage. But Quinn Ewers has barely played anything, and I know Zach Wilson's been hurt. You don't want like the competitive advantage to go out the window when you got a team that, let's say you're in the division, or Bills team or Pat's team. You don't want them taking out their best chance to win to, bench Tua because Tua's throwing too many picks, because Tua still is a good quarterback most of the time. Just a lot of times he isn't. So I just don't know what McDaniel's going to do there. I do know that it's over for him, and you feel if you're a Dolphins fan for sure. And then speaking of the AFCs, the Patriots, if you weren't taking them seriously when I gave them out a couple times on this show the last couple weeks, 2 weeks ago and 3 weeks ago, you better start paying attention to them now. They are, obviously, the win over the Bills was huge. The Titans played better yesterday than I thought they would, and they still got blown out 31-13. Cam Ward had a solid game, almost 300 yards passing. Ramondre Stevenson, 18 carries, 88 yards. Drake May is slinging the ball, is running the ball, was solid yesterday yet again, 21 of 23 for 222 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, quarterback rating of 103.9, QBR of 96.4. This team, and I remember I gave the Bills out to win the Super Bowl, and I'm sticking with it for the season. They could win the division, though. They are playing that well with Vrabel being back there. I am a huge Pats fan this year in the NFL. I'm very impressed with what they're able to do there. They're balanced, and I think this is a team that's going to keep getting better. They've got the Browns coming up in Week 8. Home Browns, home Atlanta, at Bucks, home Jets, at Bengals, home Giants. They're not going to win all those games. They can win most of them. This could be a 10-win team before, right at the beginning of December. That's how good I think the Patriots are. So use them in survivor pools when you can. There's going to be a lot of times I give out the Patriots to wager on. Very impressed with New England and the job that the Vrabel's doing out there. And obviously you knew him going back to Tennessee was going to be a big deal. And the job was definitely taken care of the way he wanted to. One more game. Oh, yeah, and also I wanted to mention the Drake May to Booty connection, their great receiver, has been phenomenal to watch, too. I'm going to give out a lot of his props. He's been hitting them. I gave out a touchdown of his a few weeks ago that helped us catch a big ticket as well. But Drake May playing really well. And then I want to do this, and then I'm going to show you guys something. We're going to talk to my man Dominshire. Look forward to some of the games next week and the games tonight. The Chiefs. Now, this is a bad Raiders team, and you feel for Pete Carroll, now 2-5. He expected the Raiders to be a good team this year, or at least better. They're not. Obviously, I hope he doesn't resign or get out of there. 31-0. The Raiders barely can get to midfield. Mahomes throwing no-look passes. Also, go if you did see, you got to look this up. It's on my social media too, at Dan Leach GTM. There was a play where Mahomes was trying to get the Chiefs to go off sides. Late in the play clock, he said this blank never works. It's never blinking works. And then proceeded to snap the ball, thinking the Raiders were like, oh, he's not going to run the play. This guy is unreal. I mean, say what you will about Mahomes and Brittany and the social media stuff and Taylor Swift and Kelsey. Say what you want. Mahomes is literally one of the best quarterbacks ever. And I don't know. It's so tough to say, like I said in the discussion earlier about Shohei Ohtani and Babe Ruth and eras. It's tough to compare Mahomes to, the Bart Starrs or the Otto Grahams or even the Joe Montanas because the game has changed so much. Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre in this era now, Peyton Manning. I think he might end up the best ever. I mean, Brady won the most titles. I think Mahomes won 7 Super Bowls. But as far as the position of quarterback, and for a long time I said that maybe Peyton Manning was at least in the top 3 of the position of quarterbacking. Aaron Rodgers, too. I mean, Tom Brady said that if Aaron Rodgers was on the Patriots, he would have won 9 Super Bowls. Brady's great, but Aaron Rodgers had more talent as a quarterback, so did Peyton Manning. The job of quarterback. Brady was just a better winner. Mahomes can pull hats out of rabbits. Yeah, I said hats out of rabbits. That's how good he is. He doesn't have to pull the rabbit out of the hat. He'll pull the hat out of the rabbit. There's your David Blade reset. So Chiefs all over the Raiders, 31-0. All right, take a look at this. And on the other side, we are going to talk with my great friend and longtime producer, 8 weeks long, but he already feels like he's been doing it for years. Dominshire and his Ravens panic meter. We'll get to the Squatch same game parlays for Monday Night Football. Look ahead games as well. Much more to come. Take a look at this.
You think you've got the picks to hang with the pros? Well, step into the NFL Survivor competition, your proving grounds. Just $20 to enter and over $100,000 in cash prizes. Each week, the top 10 competitors move on to the next round of the NFL Survivor. Everyone else, done. 1 week, one shot. Do you think you have what it takes? Click the link below to join now.
Get it done, friends. Like I said, use that code EDGE. You get $5 off the $20 entry fee to get into the satellite, to get into the main draw if you finish in the top 10 of this the Bull Rush Survivor contest. It's awesome. Get involved. All right, a couple quick games I wanted to mention before we move on to look forward and bring in Dominshire. Big bounce back win for the Eagles. That was my play of the week. Gave it to you on this show. Closer than it should have been. They win 28-22. It's another reason you got to watch the show. Tell your friends about it, your aunts, uncles, sisters, cousins, maybe even your old lab partner in high school biology. Also, just how good is the Indianapolis Colts? They moved to 6-1. They dominate the Chargers in LA. Now, listen, all due respect, Chargers have one of the worst home field edges in all football. Most times there's more opposing fans than there is Chargers fans. It's just the way it is. LA is a very fair weather town. Plus, the Rams are the bigger team there anyway. And the San Diego fans are pissed the Chargers moved in the first place. Remember they played in that soccer stadium? That was, by the way, historically in NFL history, the least home field edge in any stadium ever. But Indy's ridiculous. Daniel Jones slinging it. Phenomenal. Cowboys blast the Commanders. Remember, the Commanders, Bills, my preseason Super Bowl pick on this show. Obviously, I hope it's the Lions, but Commanders still have a lot of time to get well. Jaden Daniels coming off an injury the last couple weeks ago. They should not have lost the way they did in Dallas yesterday. Every time the Commanders seem to make a little charge. Cowboys with Dak Prescott, it was incredible with 3 touchdown passes. Javonte Williams, 116 yards on the ground with a touch. 44-22, unacceptable, but I love the over in that game, so we catch that. And the Packers, they find a way to move to 4-1-1, keep pace in the NFC North. Crazy win in Arizona. Is that cause for concern or just a great road win? Because to me, that is not a good Cardinals team. They played well, but they're not that good with Jacoby Brissett, their backup, and a banged-up Marvin Harrison Jr., and Green Bay still almost lost. They barely could score in the first half. So we'll see if it's cause for concern or just a really good road win. In the NFL these days, most times any road win is good, even if it's against a bad team like the 2-5 Cardinals. And the Niners, big win for them. I liked the Falcons last night. I was wrong about that. Thought it'd be a close game. It was for the most part till the end. But 20-10, Falcons after not dominating, but really looking great against Buffalo. And Bijan Robinson running for like 500 yards. Couldn't really get it going. Penix Jr. had his issues, but a big win 20-10 for the Niners to move to 5-2, keep pace in the NFC West. That was awesome. All right, let's take a look at the Davonshire panic meter as I bring him in for a minute here. I know he's in the palatial palace of the Bull Rush Studios today. But by the way, what was lunch? I heard, because you still owe me sushi. I'm going to collect that at some point soon. I heard that you had some kind of a tofu dish. Why would you go vegan today?
Never. I would never. I'm a carnivore. I would never. I had some chicken and rice today.
Ooh, now did you make it or did your lovely wife, Francesca, make it?
I made it. Lexi, by the way, don't get me in trouble here.
You know that I know her name is Lexi.
I know. I don't want her to listen and be like, who's Francesca?
First, great to see you, as always. Thank you for doing the incredible job you do. You had a great week because your team did play. So
happiest I've been.
Let's talk about the Davonshire Baltimore Ravens, quote them evermore or nevermore, panic meter. 3 weeks ago, well, here, let me just quickly recap for those that are joining the show for the first time or maybe missed a couple weeks. Last week, after the loss, you know what? I want to do this. I want to go back to when things really started getting bad. We'll go back to week 4. So week 4, we started this. That's when you lost to the Texans, 44-10. And you're only 1-4, so it wasn't like the world was totally over. I know you were a 6.5 that week, right? That was the 6.5 week. Week 5, when the Ravens, needed a win more, but all of a sudden the internet's not working, of course, because the whole world is dead. All right, let me go to my phone, Donovan. I can't believe the internet's not working. Son of a snitch. So anyway, that was
2000 all over again. The whole internet's down.
Yeah, I can't believe it. It's Y2K. So week 5 is when, week 5 is when you got to 1-4. That was when it was 6.5 out of 10. Then you lost at home in week 6 to the Rams and scored 3 points, 17-3 to drop to 1-5. Then you were at an 8.5, right? Yep. And then this week, you luckily did have a game. So were you able to enjoy your life? Did you go fishing? Did you go on a hike with Lexi? What was the job you were able to not have to worry about of, stressing over your Ravens? And where's the panic meter heading into what obviously is a must-win game? If the Chicago Bears in Baltimore again.
Yeah, first weekend I didn't have a new hole in my wall, so that was good. Punched in my wall. I went to Oktoberfest. It was nice, relaxing. I'm feeling good about the next week. We got Lamar Jackson back and Roquan Smith back, so that should be good. I'm really hoping that our we get a little bit more of our defense. We get more Davis back, Travis Jones, wide receiver obviously Zay Flowers. I know they're all questionable this week, so and then Marlon Humphreys. How can I forget about Marlon Humphreys? So I'm hoping we get some of those questionable guys back. I do feel good because we have Lamar back and Roquan Smith. So those are some big power players on obviously offense. Lamar is the offense, and then Roquan Smith in linebacker there for defense. So I'm feeling better than I did on week 6. I'll say that.
Sure, I sure hope so.
I'm really hoping that prediction of where Netflix is going to make a documentary about this comeback called Evermore. And
that was my idea.
Yeah, I like that. But I think we have a chance. I would say I went from an 8.5. Now I'm down to like an 8.
All right. Well,
I moved down to like an 8 this week just because we have some people back and that the other guys are questionable. The fact that they're not ruled out yet completely is
just to show you how crazy. By the way, you're rambling again. Just to show you how crazy the world we live in. The Ravens are still 22-1 to win the Super Bowl. They have better odds than the Niners, the Chargers, the Seahawks, the Patriots, and the Jaguars and Steelers. That is ridiculous. And like I said last week, Davin, a lot of that's based on liability. because if the sports books make the Ravens 50-1, like they probably should be, and you get tons of people hammering it, they were the favorite before the season. They already have a ton of money on it. Their true odds are probably closer to 50-1 or 40-1.
Because Vegas knows something that we don't.
Yeah,
it's all planned. It's all planned.
They know that the Ravens. Oh yeah, you're a script guy. They know the Ravens suck, Donovan. All right, before I let you go, quick thought on that absurd scuttlefest, scrumdiddlyumptious, supercalifragilistic, expialidocious, unexplainable Giants Broncos game.
The Giants Broncos, yeah. Crazy. I honestly just watched the highlights on that one. Like I said, I took a full
Yeah, you were drunk at Oktoberfest.
I was that too. That was on Sunday. So yeah,
I saw the highlights.
Of course. It was insane.
Well, you told me you put $1,000 on the Broncos live when they were down 26-9, so you're buying dinner.
I wish I had $1,000 to put on the Broncos. One thing I thought you were going to talk about on the show was the Unk Fest. You didn't even talk about the battle of the geriatrics.
Yeah, listen, because you want to know why? Because I'm way better than that. I don't care about Unk Fest. Stupid.
I thought it was like, look, I'm a big Joe Flacco fan, so I loved it. Obviously, it didn't work out, but I'm big on Joe Cool. So,
all right, well, I'm big on you. Thank you for everything. I'm glad you didn't have to worry about the Ravens for a week, but now it's right back to it. If you lose to the Bears, the season's over. I mean, in my opinion, it already is. But if you drop to 1-7, it's over.
I agree.
1-7 or 1-1? 1-7 or 1-6?
1-6.
You're 1-6 now.
Yeah, well, we're 1-5 now.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
We would be 1-6 if we lose. We'll be in 1-6, which I agree. I think it's over, but I think we're gonna shock the world here. I'm staying positive.
All right, get ready for Evermore. I'm gonna produce it. David, thank you as always. You're the best. All right, a few things to get to here before we get out of here. Unkfest. I know you brought up Unkfest to me. I think before I was like, Unkfest. Flacco's great though. I do love Flacco. Let me start with this because we got to talk a little Thursday night football, and it's an interesting game when it comes to what's going on with the Los Angeles Chargers, who just were basically embarrassed at home when it comes to a game that I thought they would be much more competitive in. They host the Vikings. Obviously, we'll see JJ McCarthy's status. The line is built in with that hook. It's Chargers minus 3.5. Vikes came back nicely against the Eagles, couldn't win in the end. I like the Chargers. I don't love them, but I like them minus the 3.5. But I want you to buy it down to 2.5. I don't believe they're going to have two duds in a row under Harbaugh at home. The Vikings have to travel out to Los Angeles. They come off the rough loss at the end to the Vikings. Or to the Eagles. That's an emotional thing. To me, give me the Chargers minus the 3.5. Buy it down to 2.5 and fire up those lightning bolts. Also, I like Lad McConkey props. I think he's going to go over his receptions, over his yards. I think he's going to be a big target against that Vikings defense on Thursday Night Football. Here are my look aheads for you. Carolina. This Carolina team starting to play better. You got to check the Bryce Young status. Remember, he had that ankle injury, went out late, and they had to bring Andy Dalton in. But they hang out against a terrible Jets team. But I like what Carolina's doing. Right now, the hook is built in. It's Carolina plus 7.5 against the Bills. Monitor the status of Bryce Young. But I still, if Young plays, if it goes down to 7 or 6.5, just buy it up to 7.5. I like Carolina plus a touchdown and a hook against the Bills. The Bills are still my Super Bowl pick. But they're not playing at the level that they were earlier in the year. I think Carolina can hang in that game and lose by a touchdown or less. How about the Giants off the heartbreak? Now, this is a dangerous game because you never know how teams are going to react. Remember, Brian Dable's job is basically on the line. They go down in a just absolute heartbreaking fashion in a game they definitely should have won. A lot of times you can say, oh, that team should have won. Maybe they shouldn't have. They should have won that game. They're playing a division rival, the Eagles. We already did this when they won and beat the Eagles, a couple weeks ago. I gave you the Giants plus 7.5. Obviously, this game is in Philadelphia. Giants right now plus 6.5. I want you to buy it up to 7.5. I think it's another one-score game. I think the Giants, it's a good thing they're not playing like the Saints or, a team that they don't care about, Jacksonville. They're playing a division rival off that really rough loss. There's no extra motivation needed to play the Eagles. Plus, they just beat them. The Eagles are going to be fired up. I like the Giants plus the 7.5. Buy it up to that. I think that's going to be a one-score game as well. Atlanta, in the end, they were in that game, but then in the end, they lose by 10 to San Fran. I still think Atlanta is a very good team. Anytime you have a guy like Bijan Robinson, you are going to be the best running back in football, in my opinion. You're going to be in any games. You can control the clock. They're laying 8.5 over Miami. The Dolphins are disgustingly bad. And to me, they might bench Tua, so obviously maybe monitor that. But this is a Dolphins team that's going to get blown out a lot this year, especially when it comes to a game on the road in Atlanta. Maybe you see the Dolphins in this game for a quarter and a half. I think in the end, the Dolphins or the Falcons with Drake London and Pitts, who had a good game in the loss to San Fran. Obviously, Bijan Robinson and Penix Jr. is getting better and showing flashes. I think they win this game by 20. So lay the 8.5. Miami has got awful. I rarely will give out plays where I lay these kind of points. I'm always looking for underdog value or, obviously outright wins on money lines. I don't like laying a lot of points. I like buying stuff down because the NFL is so close and filled with parity. I don't mind laying the 8.5. I can land with this game by 20 or 25 points. And then the Cowboys. Cowboys off that big win against the Commanders division game. Now they play the Denver Broncos. And the Broncos off a miracle win. A lot of times that can you don't think it would, but it could kind of deflate a team because they're living this incredible high. Got to get back to work. That game is on the road for the Cowboys, which is probably a better situation for them. Broncos are at home, a little more comfortable. Cowboys plus 3.5. Dak Prescott's playing out of his mind. Pickens, they get CeeDee Lamb back. He immediately scores a touchdown. The Cowboys defense at times leaves a little bit desired, but they're playing better, and they held Washington in check for the most part with that good offense of Jaden Daniels. I like the Cowboys with a built-in hook plus 3.5 at Denver. There's your look ads. All right, then when it comes for tonight, I got plays on both games. The Lions, we'll start with Lions-Bucks, and I will tell you this. This is a Lions team that is the best in the NFL the last 4+ years under Dan Campbell off a loss. Lions also are 14-4 in primetime games off a loss straight up. And I think it's like 16. It was maybe it was 12. It was 14-4, and maybe it was 12 and I'm sorry, 4. I'm losing my mind right now. 14-4 straight up off a loss in primetime games in the last 18. And very similar against the spread. I think it was maybe 13-5. It was very close when it came to what they are. They are incredible off losses. I think the Lions come out. You got to monitor the status of Ibuka. This line has moved to 6.5. It was 5.5, then it was 4.5, then it was 5.5, 6. It is up to 6.5. So if Ibuka doesn't play already, Bucky Irving is out. Mike Evans might not be playing either. He's another game time decision. It's right under a touchdown. I'm not touching the spread, but I like a Jameson Williams touchdown, and I like Sam Laporte of the Lions tight end over receptions and over yards. I think it's a big game for him against that Bucs defense. I think Jameson Williams gets another touchdown. Those are my two plays there. I like the Lions 34-28. And if Evans and Ibuka somehow don't play, it'll be a lot worse than 34-28. I like a small play on the over. But let's talk about the Seahawks and Texans. Got a couple plays for here. We'll start with my first one when it comes to play I made on Bull Rush. I like the Seahawks outright in this. I think the line is kind of weird. It's one of those things where, yes, Houston has weapons, CJ Stroud, Nico Collins. They've got some good running backs. But to me, I think this line was sitting at 3. It's moved up to 3.5. I don't want to buy the juice down to 2.5. I just want to take the money line. So I laid the $5,000 to win about 7,800, almost 8,000 the Seahawks money line. So that's my one play for that. But here's a same game parlay for Seahawks Texans. And I had some fun with this one. Kenneth Walker over 49.5 rush yards. I think he has a big game on the ground. They're going to establish a run with him and Charbonnet. Nico Collins is getting so much usage, so many targets, over 74.5 receiving yards. He's good for a couple bombs. And I went the other way with Jackson Smith and Jigma because he's getting a ton of usage too, but he's catching the ball a lot. I think there's a better chance of Nico Collins having more yards and Smith and Jigma getting more receptions. So you put those three together, almost 6-1. I laid $1,111, my lucky numbers, to win almost over $7,600. Those are my two plays in that squash same game parlay for the Texans and Seahawks game. I like the Hawks to win that game 28-21, maybe a little closer than I would like it, but I think in the end, that Texas team has been playing better. The Seahawks will get the job done on the doubleheader on Monday Night Football. All right, listen, that's going to do it for us here. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back to our live time at 6 Eastern next Monday night. Don't forget, please go to bullrush.com. You can get into the Survivor contest by winning a satellite, being in the top 10. If you go to bullrush.com and use the promo code EDGE, you save $5, only costs you $15. You get in, you finish in the top 10, you're into the main draw. And don't forget, week 11, that's when there starts to be cash prizes for first, second, and third. And anyone that wins a week gets automatically entered into week 20. Week 20 is where you can win $50,000 for first place. There's a bunch of other cash prizes, $100,000 prize pool entirely. So please get to bullrush.com, use the code EDGE for that $5 sign-up bonus. All right, that is going to do it for us today. Big thanks to my incredible producer, David Shire. Thank you so much to each and every one of you for watching. Let's go Lions tonight. I'll have full reaction for my coverage of that on next week's show. But until next time, keep reaching for the stars, believe in the dream. Dan Leach the Squatch saying so long. Until next time, the dream is alive. Thanks so much for watching the Monday Night Edge, powered by Bull Rush. Believe in it. Believe in the dream. I'm out of here.